There's no doubt that our country is in a place of tension as people conflict over their political beliefs. As the question of police brutality circulates the nation, Colin Kaepernick has returned to the center of attention. Kaepernick spent 6 years in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers before opting out of his contract following a season where he caught national headlines for kneeling during the National Anthem. With the recent events going on in the country, the possibility of his return to the league is a major talking point. This raises an interesting question. How good was Colin Kaepernick? Before we talk about Colin Kaepernick, I'd like to acknowledge that the majority of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel. Darren and I are both college students and hope to one day make this our full-time job. So please, if you do enjoy, consider subscribing and helping our journey here on YouTube. Thank you and enjoy the video. Disclaimer, this video in no way represents any of our political views and is meant to take an objective look at the career of Colin Kaepernick and the argument both for and against his return. Now, let's get into the video. Colin Rand Kaepernick was born on November 3rd, 1987 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Kaepernick, born to a white woman and black man, was put up for adoption and was adopted at 5 weeks old by a white couple who had 2 other kids. The last name Kaepernick actually derives from his adoptive parents, Rick and Teresa. They lived in Wisconsin until Kaepernick was 4 and moved to California. He began playing football at 8 and started off playing defensive end and punter, and at age 9, he started playing quarterback and threw a long touchdown in his first ever pass. Kaepernick attended John H. Pittman High School in Turlock, California, where he had a 4.0 GPA. He excelled athletically for the Pride and was named All-State in football, basketball, and baseball. As a senior, Kaepernick led Pittman to their first playoff win in school history and was named Central California Conference MVP. In high school, Kaepernick was most notably a star pitcher and gained scholarship offers. However, Kaepernick wanted to play football. He received a single offer to play football and he jumped on it, and wow, Nevada got a steal. After redshirting his first season, Kaepernick began his collegiate career for the Wolfpack in 2007. Despite being recruited to Nevada to play safety, Kaepernick took over as the team's quarterback in their 5th game due to an injury to the starter. He put up 19 touchdowns to 3 interceptions and 2,175 passing yards, along with 594 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. It was a good sign of the future for Kaepernick at Nevada, and if there was one thing he was great at in college, it was improving. The next year, Kaepernick took a big step, earning WAC Offensive Player of the Year and throwing for 2,849 yards and 22 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. But his biggest improvement was on the ground. His pure athleticism started to show on full display, and he recorded 1,130 yards and 17 touchdowns. Ahead of his junior season at Nevada, Kaepernick was actually selected by the Chicago Cubs in the 43rd round of the 2009 MLB Draft. He decided not to sign and instead returned to Nevada, where he recorded 2,052 yards and 20 touchdowns to 6 interceptions passing, along with 1,183 yards and 16 touchdowns on the ground. Prior to Kaepernick's senior season at Nevada, he wasn't necessarily considered a pro talent, but that was soon to change. He had a stellar year, passing for 3,022 yards and 21 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and added 1,206 rushing yards and 20 touchdowns. He was named WAC Co-Offensive Player of the Year. The best moment of his collegiate career came in his final home game, a battle against Boise State. The Broncos, simply put, owned the Wolfpack during Kaepernick's time at Nevada. Boise State had won the previous 10 matchups and were on a 24-game winning streak going into the game. Kaepernick led Nevada to a number 19 ranking in the AP poll, but Boise State stood as one of the best in college football at number 3. Boise State was the best mid-major team over the 2000s and simply owned college football. You may remember in the 2007 Fiesta Bowl when they took down Oklahoma and Adrian Peterson in dramatic Statue of Liberty fashion. The following season, Kaepernick started for the first time and in his first matchup against the Broncos, nearly pushed the Wolfpack over the edge in an iconic 69-67 loss that ended with heartbreak. He lost the next 2 seasons before coming to 2010, his final game at Boise State. Doug Martin and Kellen Moore pushed the Broncos out to a 24-7 lead at the half, and the chances were slim for Kaepernick to finally overcome Boise State. Kaepernick came firing back to tie the game, but a 79-yard Martin score put the Broncos up with less than 5 minutes to go. Things were bleak, but with 13 seconds remaining, Kaepernick responded. Moore still had some heroics left though, as he set up a last-second 26-yard field goal with less than 2 seconds remaining after a ridiculous 53-yard pass. but he missed. And then in the first possession of overtime, the Boise State kicker missed again on a 29-yard field goal. Nevada kicker Anthony Martinez had a 33-yard field goal attempt to win it in the second possession of overtime. And unlike Boise State's kicker, well, he drilled it. Kaepernick was a fast riser at the 2011 NFL Draft. Teams were pleased with his jaw-dropping athleticism and collegiate numbers, but worried about his ability to read defenses and his throwing motions. The 49ers traded up to the 45th selection in the second round to take Kaepernick. He spent his rookie year backing up Alex Smith, throwing for 35 yards in limited action. Kaepernick began 2012 behind Smith again, who led the 49ers to a 6-2 record behind his NFL best 70% completion percentage and third best 104.1 passer rating. Smith was on a roll, but went down in week 10 with a concussion. Kaepernick went on a hot streak after taking over the starting role and retained the job, helping the 49ers to an 11-4-1 record and first round bye. San Francisco stuck with the hot hand of Kaepernick for the playoffs, and it paid off in the divisional round as he set an NFL record for rushing yards in a game with 181. He also had 263 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, 2 passing and 2 on the ground, in a 45-31 victory over the Packers. Kaepernick passed for 233 yards and a score the following week in a tight NFC Championship bout against the Falcons that ended in a 28-24 win and a Super Bowl bid. The 49ers' top NFL defense struggled to stop Joe Flacco and the Ravens early in the Super Bowl, falling into a 21-6 halftime deficit. The 49ers tried to come back, but it was too little too late. Despite the loss, Kaepernick was on the uptrend, but unfortunately, that was the peak of his career. The following season, he helped the 49ers to another playoff appearance after recording 3,197 yards and 21 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, along with 524 yards and 4 touchdowns rushing. The 49ers got through the Packers and Panthers in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs to get 1 win away for another chance at a ring, but the Seahawks stood in their way. The 49ers raced out to an early lead and had a 17-13 advantage heading into the fourth quarter. Russell Wilson found Jermaine Kearse for a 35-yard score early in the quarter, and from there, well, the blame does fall on Colin Kaepernick. The 49ers had 3 drives in the final quarter. The first ended in a Kaepernick fumble. The second ended in a Kaepernick interception, and well, the third, Richard Sherman did a part in another Kaepernick interception. Kaepernick has been on a downturn since. The 49ers were without defensive stars Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis, and in a result, finished 8-8 in 2014. Things were to only get worse when head coach Jim Harbaugh left for Michigan. Kaepernick struggled in 2015 and ultimately was benched for Blaine Gabbert in week 9. He missed the rest of the year after shoulder surgery and expressed his wish to be traded. Coming into the infamous 2016 season, Kaepernick was coming off of 3 injuries and had lost his starting job the year prior. New head coach Chip Kelly named Gabbert as the team starter. On the season, the 49ers were, well, simply awful. Gabbert was benched for Kaepernick, and then Kaepernick was benched for Gabbert, and then again, Gabbert was benched for Kaepernick. Kaepernick, following his first 2 seasons as a starter, averaged 2,408 yards, 13.7 touchdowns, and 6.3 interceptions, along with 454 yards and 1.3 touchdowns rushing. In 2017, the 49ers were going to be under their 4th head coach in 4 years as they brought in Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan did not believe that Kaepernick would fit in the scheme he wanted to run and told him that he would be released. Kaepernick instead decided to opt out of his deal, I would assume to save face. This, of course, was after a year where he was the most talked about person maybe in sports. During the 49ers' 3rd preseason game of 2016, instead of standing for the national anthem, Kaepernick chose to stay seated. He contributed his decision to not wanting to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people. An important part of this protest that I think is often lost is that after Kaepernick sat for the anthem and was told about how it was seen disrespectful, he instead decided to kneel in order to show more respect to the military. He later that year was seen wearing socks that depicted cops as pigs and faced backlash. It is worth noting that both the 49ers and the NFL released statements that Kaepernick was not required to stand for the anthem. Kaepernick was brought in for a visit with the Seahawks in the 2017 offseason, but left unsigned. This was when the initial blackballing accusations began. The Ravens reportedly thought about bringing him in to back up Joe Flacco, but were worried about the backlash. He reached a settlement in 2019 with the NFL about the matter. His most recent NFL event came in November of 2019 when the league set up a workout for him. Kaepernick did not like that it was closed to the media and instead moved to a high school for the workout where 7 teams visited. In his time away from football, Kaepernick has appeared in a popular Nike ad that says, "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." The current Colin Kaepernick situation is a bit of a sticky one. Performance-wise, Kaepernick has experience in some of the biggest moments. His experience warrants him as a reliable backup and could certainly fill a team's void if a starter were to go down, like a Nick Foles and Eagles situation in 2017. His time in San Francisco showed us his ability to be a game manager, often an ideal backup option for a team that already has a designated starter. When analyzing where Colin Kaepernick could fit into the NFL, it is clear that there is definitely more to the story than just his performance. There are backups in the league that you may have never even heard of, such as Anthony Gordon in Seattle, John Wolford with the Rams, or Logan Woodside in Tennessee. Kaepernick is an experienced NFL veteran who played in a Super Bowl. It'd be hard to argue for some NFL backups over him. On the flip side, going back to Kaepernick's final season in the NFL, there is no doubt he has struggled on the field. Kaepernick had a poor 49.5 quarterback rating, 6.1 better than the season prior. That 49.5 QBR was the exact same as one other starter that year, the Texans' Brock Osweiler. Osweiler, after that one season, was traded away after just signing a massive 4-year, $72 million contract, and he's now out of the league. Osweiler and Kaepernick were similar in 2016, and Osweiler was given up on after 1 year on a monster deal. The reason Osweiler isn't likely to get another job, much like Kaepernick, could be due to potential. Teams often like to have a backup that could one day become something bigger. For example, last year the Jaguars signed Nick Foles to a massive contract, but decided to bring in a late-round draft pick in Gardner Minshew. As we know, that has worked out pretty well. One of the biggest questions about Kaepernick before the protests began was his capabilities without a start-filled defense. Since his dominant defense has disappeared, he has struggled mightily and saw a major dip in production. During his only 2 seasons with a winning record, the 49ers had a top 3 defense. San Francisco saw a drop to 10th in 2014 as they went 8-8, and Kaepernick has struggled since. Additionally, in the NFL, distractions are outweighed by good play. A recent example of this could be Kareem Hunt, who decided he wanted to try out being a kicker for a night at a Cleveland hotel. After being placed on the commissioner's exempt list and being released by the Chiefs, he was signed less than 3 months later by the Browns. The most notable, however, is Michael Vick. His dogfighting rank had dogs hung, drowned, electrocuted, and shot. Vick spent 2 years in jail for the disgusting act, and when he got out, well, he got signed and went on to play in the league for 7 years before retiring. For Kaepernick, unfortunately, the timing of his return in 2020 isn't ideal. It feels like this offseason, compared to previous years, teams have a solid plan at the position or are trying to figure out the talent of a young player. The fact that former MVP Cam Newton is struggling to find a starting opportunity this offseason is telling on how the market is right now. At the end of the day, the NFL is a business, and in 2016, they suffered because of Kaepernick's protests. As viewers decided not to watch the league due to politics, the NFL ratings went down 8% on the year. In 2015, the NFL averaged 18.7 million viewers during the regular season. In 2016, as Kaepernick began his protests, it dropped to 16.5, over 2 million difference. Losing money is bad, and if the league as a whole lost that much, I can't imagine it would be favorable for a single owner. This would especially reign true if Kaepernick were to go with a team that's fan base may not agree with his stances. For example, I would imagine that the Titans signing Kaepernick may not be in their best interests and may hurt them financially. Colin Kaepernick has had his moments over his time playing football, but has been more of a star off the field as a political figure. Strictly based off of performance, we believe that Kaepernick is not a starting level quarterback, but to believe that he isn't talented enough to secure a roster spot, that's ludicrous. It's also worth noting that he may not actually be interested in returning. The day he signs a deal, Kaepernick goes from being a blackballed figure and somebody that a lot of people look up to a guy on the sideline. In terms of his legacy, does he actually want to come back?